everybody. So some of this will have already been covered in our little intro section, but what I wanted to talk about was sort of a bit of an introduction to the actual hardware kit that we're shipping today. And some of you who are coming and watching our stream might not even know, when we talk about the OHMC, what do we even mean by that? So OHMC stands for Open Hardware Miniconf. And it was built with a design to kind of point out that, you know, a lot of LCAs talking about software and the environment and the culture in which, sort of our open environment can flourish. And we wanted to put forward the fact that, you know, hardware is also got the capacity to be open too. But lots of people don't have access to hardware. And there's a huge barrier to entry. You know, you think about trying to learn how to program before boot camps were available. Hardware is sort of still in that early stages for open hardware. The idea of walking into, I don't know, a J car and picking up a soldering iron can be really intimidating. So we wanted to put together a space where you could come along and learn how to solder, and we would provide all the gear and we would provide all the expertise so that you could sit there and usually turn a little blinky LED on, and that is the best feeling ever when you can turn a little blinky LED on. And that would hopefully just take the edge off so that people could then go along and participate at a later point, and build their own things and feel a bit more confident in terms of, you know, running with their own hardware projects. But of course, now that we've been virtual, we've found that our idea of what we can produce and how effective that can be in our goals of supporting people who are not used to operating in a hardware field has been quite challenging, particularly when we think about our diversity initiatives. So every year we try to make sure that we keep some tickets aside so that people who are an underrepresented minority within the hardware field can come along and be involved and be supported. And that is very hard when all we're doing is shipping out hardware to you. So we're actually having a bit of a think in terms of what that means for this year's conference and potentially for any future virtual or hybrid conferences going forwards. So if people have got suggestions on that, we'd love to hear about it. This is as much about you as it is about what we can produce. So what were our goals for this year? When we think about Open Hardware 2022, last year, linux.conf very kindly said, hey, why don't you build an electronic badge for absolutely everybody? And we said, sure, we're used to only building 50 kits. We'll do 300. How hard could it be? So that was shipped and delivered despite many upsets, as there are every year. And so this year we said, well, that seemed to be really easy. So let's make the most of what we did last year, improve upon it, and then take it the level further. So everybody who attended LCA last year who was within Australia was shipped a 2021 rectangular swag badge. So we said, right, well, we'll have the swag badge, but part of what made the swag badge so appealing was the fact that it could be extended with a simple add-on. So let's this year put a lot of our hardware expertise and effort and involvement into the SAO side of things. So we decided that we would build an SAO that had an FPGA in it, field programmable gate array. And Andy's got a talk later on which will go in a little bit more into what that is and how you drive it and what kind of application that we were going to ship with it. And obviously our goal was, you know, the theme for the conference this year was community engagement. And once again, despite the fact that we're virtual, we're here with you. We've covered that we're really sorry. We thank you for your patience. We did think about trying to cram it in so that we could ship in time for the conference, but that seemed like a terrible idea, particularly, you know, over Christmas. And so we really appreciate your understanding that this year, unfortunately, you won't have your hardware to play with during the conference. There'll be some resources a little bit later that says, you know, once you get your hardware and you are starting to play with it, if you come into any problems, we're happy to help, and we've got ways that you can contact us and contact each other to support one another. Earlier in the chat, there was some questions about people saying, I didn't even know that I could register, and now it turns out that I'm too late. Part of the hardware problems that have made the kits run late this year means that we're not actually quite sure how many kits we'll be able to produce. So we've actually closed off registrations and they were booked out before I even had a chance to promote them on Twitter. So we've booked them out to the amount that we think we can safely produce if we end up with excess. There'll be some communications happening over our Twitter feed and a couple of other places we can reach out to people and say, look, you might be able to pop in and maybe we, if you support us with the shipping cost, we might be able to send one to you. But Andy, I think, might have some more to add.
I was going to say, it's very likely we will have extra OHMC kit this year, and we'll make sure we deliver the ones for the people who've registered already, and then open up for the rest. And also, because we'll have more time, we'll be able to ship to international, because typically we've only shipped to Australia so far, because that was hard enough. So
Yep.
We'll keep you all posted.
So if you're in New Zealand or further afield, maybe you too could finally get a fancy Swagbadge kit. So we've given you a bit of a sneak preview on what we've built. This year is still a Swagbadge, only it's now in a fancy new shape. It's still very similar in what it's got on it compared to last year's, and we're shipping it with 2 SAOs that come with it. So excited. Here is one we wrote about earlier. I love how much this party button... Sorry, Steph. Sorry, you're sick. She's the one who designed and built this. It looks like a laser.
If you give me the bits.
Oh, he's going to turn it on so we can have flashy lights.
Oh, this is in standalone mode.
Oh, the exciting thing, our party button SAO works part of the badge, and you can just hook it up separately to a battery, and then it'll go on its own. If I click the button, I don't know whether you can see this, but it's flashing. Yay, flashing lights.
Yeah. More seriously, Steph Piper's done some amazing work on her company Elkie, which is spelled Lekie, and so you go to elkie.com.au, you can see more of Steph's work. But she does beautiful PCBs with cats and I guess sort of it's like stars and galaxies. They're amazing looking PCBs.
I built the cat one. It was so cool.
Yeah, the cat one. And what the idea was that we would be able to combine forces to take her beautiful work, and then say here's how you can hook it up with a microcontroller and network, and so add another dimension to her work. So it's a pity Steph won't be able to talk about that today.
Let's talk a little bit about what changes we've made. The firmware will still be backwards compatible. So if you've got the old Swagbadge and not the new Swagbadge, any changes we make into our software will still run on your old badge. If you've got the new one and not the old one, you'll still be able to run some of the stuff. Hopefully they'll be forward compatible. So the changes we've made is that, if I can grab both of them, get them up on screen. The old one here in this hand has got 2 OLEDs on it, and they were push button, and we've replaced that with one single much larger screen, and we've made it not be a push button because that was a little bit risky. The new one has got a reset button, belly button on his front. The last year the reset button was sort of buried under here, and if you weren't very dexterous it was hard to kind of access. Also, fabulous new shape. Thank you, Andrew Nielsen, for your gorgeous design. And some of the pinouts have changed, so we'll have to publish those so that you know how it's altered. But it's still got SAO mount points, and it's still got the gorgeous artwork on the back. And it still has the capacitive touch sliders, and it's still going to ship with ACO, and it'll still be fabulous. And this year, obviously, we've got the Rockling, because you're going to rock on, and the party button. So if the focus for this year was partly on SAOs, maybe we should talk a little bit about what even is an SAO for those who maybe have forgotten or are not familiar. So as you can see, this year our little dude, he's carrying a separate PCB, it detaches. So a simple add-on is a standard that was originally devised by people who started off doing the electronic badges back in the DEF CON days. And it was the ability to kind of chain your PCBs together. It had another name, and we have gentrified it because the idea was it was so simple that people would be building very silly little kind of flashy things that were more about fun fun than function. We have put the function back in with our Rockling. Maybe Andy, could you tell us a little bit more about a SAO and what goes into it? Like how does it actually connect to the board? What are the pins? What kind of information can you pass backwards and forwards from? Like,
I can't do that because I'm too busy pretending to be evil Nicola. So, so you wouldn't.
Andy's monitoring the chat for us right now.
You wouldn't believe the things I've been saying in your name. So as Nicola mentioned, DEFCON badges came up with a standard which was originally not called the simple add-on connector. It was another word starting with S, but it was a simple idea which basically had power, ground, and I think it was I2C in the initial version.
Didn't it have 4? 4 was the original, or did it have 3?
3 what?
Pins.
I think it was originally 4.
Power, ground,
and
I2C.
or 2 GPIOs. And then there's an update to that which extended out to being power, ground, I2C plus 2 GPIOs, which is the standard we're using now. I think they, as a bit of a joke, they called it was it Biz?
V42
Biz
something.
For anyone who remembers the days of whistling at their 9600 baud modem. So that's the SAOs standard. And so this year, what we need to do for the Rockling with the FPGA is also provide SPI, because with the FPGA we needed 2 pins for the reset and also the done pin, so the FPGA would tell us when it's configured. So we need those 2 pins. We also wanted I2C so we could communicate with the FPGA with it being a peripheral. And then we also need SPI so that what we want to be able to do is be able to reflash the FPGA's flash memory chip to put the bootloader on. So we'll ship them with a bootloader. We've not bricked one yet. It's pretty solid, but if you did want to flash your own bootloader, we would be able to do that from the Swagbadge. So we've created a SAO plus SPI.
Yep.
So it was.
That's awesome.
Answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's SAOs, and last year we shipped out some blanks so that it hooked onto your badge, but it was just a teeny tiny little proto board, so you could build your own things without having to also manage sort of connecting it physically to the badge.
By the way, we have extras, so we have leftovers from last year, so we'll ship some.
We might be able to ship some.
Yeah, we'll ship some.
Cool. So that means that if you see, the great thing about this Swagbadge concept is that it doesn't matter whether you're into software, hardware, or just hooking something cool up to the internet and going, I've got this cool thing. There is something in there for you. So, if people are really into hardware and hooking up 1,000 lights onto it, then they can do that. If you, want to use it to power your home electronics, you can do that. And if you want to ignore all of the extra hardware stuff and just enjoy the fact that you've got a portable ESP32 with a screen on it, then you can do what I did and build a choose your own adventure game or whatever it is that might take your fancy. But there's so many different avenues that you can pick up and play with these kind of kits. It's awesome. So while you're waiting for your kit to arrive, there are things that you can do and that we can help you with in the, over the coming period. There is instructions on the wiki on setting up your development environment if you're interested in, getting your kit and actually talking to it from your computer and doing some programming. So there's Thonny, which is a IDE, which I've been using because it makes the putting of the files backwards and forwards from the device a lot easier. There's MPF shell, which gives you a little REPL and it's sort of a little bit more command line. You can get familiar with the ICO engine and services, so that's a layer of software that we put in over the top. I'll talk about that a little bit more. You can get familiar with MQTT and install a client so that you can watch the messages that your badge can send to and from our hosted server. And if you're into hardware, then maybe time to get out the soldering station and look into a little bit more about the SAOs and what you might like to add on to your badge. So, it's worth talking, while this is about open hardware, a lot of the time hardware doesn't do very much unless it's got some software to drive it. And because our badges are internet connected, we can definitely do heaps of cool things. So our stack consists of, sort of the ESP firmware on the base level, and then we've got ICO over the top, which Andy has written and open sourced. and it comes pre-configured for use with the Swagbadge, but it is actually able to be conceptually used with lots of other sort of embedded hardware things out there. And over the top of it lays the applications that you write or we write or anyone else chooses to write. So Andy, I'm actually going to ask you another question.
Oh, sure.
Why is it that we even need like ICO over the top? Why, given that we've got the ESP32 and it runs MicroPython, is that right? So why do we have all these layers in our software stack in order to build this badge? That sounds like it's overcomplicated for something that is quite small and doesn't actually have a lot of kind of compute power or memory.
Yeah, yes, you have to be very careful with embedded not to create bloated software. But what we find is MicroPython provides you this general purpose layer, and when you have a specific piece of hardware, you find yourself doing the same things over and over again. So, for example, we've got touch sliders, and so if everyone has to basically write their own touch slider code, that's unnecessary duplication. So we write that for you once and say we've got the pin mappings. We do things like the touch slider is actually 4 buttons.
Yep.
So basically you've got so the left slider is 2 buttons and the right slider is another 2 buttons, and so you can basically treat these as 4 buttons or as 2 sliders. Mm-hmm. And also do things like you maybe like to do double taps or long pauses, and so all that's one thing we provide as part of the framework.
Yep.
Another is you've got all your message handling. So basically, let's see. So for the first thing you'll do is basically get onto Wi-Fi. So when you turn the device on, it's not going to know your Wi-Fi SSID and password. So we basically have it become an access point. So you can from your phone you can then tell it your access your SSID and password. So basically it needs to be a little web server.
Yep.
And then once you've entered that information into it switches over, becomes a Wi-Fi client. Does that, so we've done that, so everyone doesn't have to do that piece of work. Mm-hmm. And we've also taken it a little bit further where typically if you just do work quickly, you might just only put one access point, SSID and password, maybe just your home or your work. Yep. But what we do is basically we maintain a list, and so it scans and says, oh, I'm at work, and so it can maintain multiple SSID
frozen
passwords.
Again.
Oh, if frozen, now John might need to hit the button. So only John knows how to use his live streaming hardware. Anyway, so there's a lot of common functionality we've just provided as part of ICO to allow people to get on with their applications. And the other thing is when you've got a lot of events going on, it's nice to basically have an event loop that basically handles the button presses, the network messages, and those things, and just calls your handlers. So basically we've got an inversion controlled type mechanism where you basically create your handlers for button presses and network messages and other sort of updates. Yep. And then the event loop just handles that for you. So,
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, that's some of the framework.
That's really cool. Andy, I have worked with ICO, and Andy's built a great system that I'm sure will. I mean, I believe that you've used it in other applications, not just on the Swagbadge as well, because there are lots of things out there that need the same sort of functionality that is offered in this sort of thing. So there is instructions also in terms of how to use ICO, or you can go and read the source. And now what you might have gathered from this is that when we ship you your kit, it comes pre-flashed with the ESP32 firmware with which runs the MicroPython. It comes with ICO, so that when you first apply power and boot it up, it will ask you, get you set up with your Wi-Fi and get you up and running, and we supply some sample applications so that you can see how the badge works. So we're not asking you to get this piece of hardware and then sort of do all that complicated, how do you get software onto it when it doesn't even know how to talk to the network, all that kind of bootstrap problem. But you can wipe it. We do give you instructions if you don't trust hardware shipped to you from random places and people on the internet. We give you instructions in terms of how to reproduce those steps for yourself.
Yeah, the idea is that for newcomers, you want to provide a good out-of-the-box experience, but for anyone who's got expertise, just go nuts, just wipe our stuff out and do your own thing.
Wipe out. All right. This is hopefully. Hey. All right. So we've covered a lot of that.
Looks like it's frozen again.
Andy, your computer is John. Your computer's the worst.
I know.
Tell me why. All right, so we've actually covered a lot of what ICO can do. But the key...
I've actually lost your...
Oh, well, we'll just do with that for now.
Okay, right.
Obviously what's really cool about all of this is that we love seeing what you come along and build on the top. So here's a bit of a list of some awesome things that were built last year with Swagbadge 2021. There were games, there was Choose Your Own Adventure with a number of different adventures. There was Tower of Hanoi. There were people who were... you could get the display of the schedule up on your badge so that, you could see it and wouldn't miss a session that we were excited about. People were live streaming the conference video stream, controlling their home lights. There was handshakes, there was glowy hugs, there was an IRC bridge, there was googly eyes on sliders. Someone built an SAO so the eyes on the screen would follow the movement of your hand. These are not the droids you're looking for. We had light up tuxes, we had light up rocket ships, and people even produced models so that you could 3D print your own case. So what I'm really excited for is what you might build this year. So if you've got an idea and you're not sure how to go about it, or maybe you're not too sure about what components you might need to purchase in order to, maybe build a custom SAO, you can come and talk to us and we'd be lovely to help you out. So, obviously open hardware, while it's taken a community to even build our kits every year, a big part of what we do this for is to reach out to you and talk to you and find out what you're interested in building and help you out, especially if you're new. So our Open Hardware channel is going to be open in Venulus or Conference. There is the link for the wiki there. We've got GitHub discussions going so that everybody can talk to everybody else. Our Twitter feed is available, and those are the links to the repos. We will populate all of those links into the chat so that you can get them without having to tediously type them in.
Okay, so we have 3 questions.
Hey!
And
hit us.
The highest voted one, of course, is, can we see the dog?
There we go.
It is a very important question. Here's Astra. She is definitely our official OHMC mascot.
Only the centre of the screen is being shown.
You can see
over
over
There we
here.
go. All right, there we go.
Hello, Bobby. Hello, Bobby.
So this is Astra. She's a 2-year-old Border Collie poodle. So she's Border Collie brain and poodle wool. So she's crazy dog.
Totes adorable.
One other semi-true, off the topic question is, where is Steve? Steve is just over Andy's shoulder, right there. But there are a couple of technical questions that we'll ask as well.
Good. Okay.
So one is a noob question. I haven't booted my badge since last year. It's connecting to my Wi-Fi, but it isn't showing an IP. My router doesn't register a valid IP either. So the question is how to solve that. I think the idea would be, this may not be the best idea, but if you turn off your Wi-Fi and start the badge again, it should default to being an access point. Is that correct? And then you could reconfigure it from there?
Yes. So there could be a number of things that are wrong there. It's a bit hard to guess. Maybe what you could do is just jump on the hardware channel, and we can have probably a bit more of a one-on-one sort of question and answer, try a few things. But the best approach is always to bring up the MicroPython console log on a serial USB port, so you can actually see the logging and then determine the problem.
I was gonna. If you can hook it in via USB, then you can hopefully access the file system, and if you want, you can blow away your. If you remember the config file that's got your network connectivity in it, if you remove your Wi-Fi entry from that file, put that back onto the badge, reboot the badge, it'll come up and say, I don't know anything about any networks, I can't access anything, and it'll bring up that prompt again. So then you've got to configure a device to talk to its access point.
Okay, we only have about 1 minute left, so a couple of quick questions. Then the next question is, why not ESP32S2, which seems to be a lot easier to use with MicroPython, push file, restart, test cycle, which is why CircuitPython only supports ESP32S2. And the answer to that is that we were going with a cheap off-the-shelf Lowland module rather than re-implementing everything directly on the Swagbadge. So it was just a pragmatic choice of, we can get these boards cheaply and easily, and we went with that as a known quantity.
Particularly since last year we needed 300 of them plus spares.
The next question is FPGA okay to use on the old badge? And the answer to that is that you will not have access to all the communications. On the new badge, one of the SAO headers has been extended to add SPI, as Andy mentioned earlier, and that is to allow communications between the badge and the Rockling. You could use it without that extended capability though.
Yes, the main way that you'll communicate between the Swagbadge and the FPGA is using I2C, so it will work perfectly fine with last year's badge. What we wanted to do is make it easy for people to reflash the bootloader, and you will be able to do that with last year's badge, but because there's no specific port, we'll just give instructions on how to basically connect the 4 wires from last year's Swagbadge to the header on the Rockling if for some reason you did want to reflash the bootloader, which is in most cases not necessary. But yes,
we'll get into more details for that in Andy's dedicated talk later on today.
Yeah. And I think that is it according to the schedule. I think we are now out of time and we're now going into the room changeover. So after the break, we are going to have Tish talking about the... oh no, we don't. We have Brett. Talking about micro-rods.
Looking forward to that one.
Yes, that'll be very interesting. So go and grab a drink or something and we will see you all back here really soon. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.